Hey there, back again for another video. Uh, all the plans that I had been talking about yesterday, uh, my volunteership, the doctor's appointment, and the phone interview, I ended up canceling 2 out of 3 of those because leading up to them, I was kind of in a sort of panicky, sort of pre circling around a meltdown for several hours yesterday. I think I had a meltdown yesterday, but I definitely had one today. Anyway, I was so anxious that um, I said I wouldn't be able to attend the volunteer orientation, which I'm a little disappointed about, but also um, I I'm trying to do what my body is telling me, and I'm trying to be honest about my wants and needs, and yeah, I was just not coping with suddenly I had the volunteer opportunity, which I had signed up for a few weeks ago, the doctor's appointment, and this phone interview newly, you know, arose in the same day, and I just didn't feel up to all of that, and yeah, my foot's not better, but I still haven't made an appointment. I'm gonna try to wait it out and see if it heals a little more, but I really wanted to do the phone interview because it's for a job that I could. I have actually have a hard time putting myself there and feeling confident about it. Um, but I like the schedule, which is Tuesday to Friday, um, and it's for a health room assistant job. Um, but counter to the sound of the title, I actually would be there on my own um, for 3 out of 4 of those days, and yeah, I would be responsible for addressing all of the health concerns of the elementary school students there, and I do feel good about the interview. I My partner helped me recall some of the relevant experience that I had administering medication to students in the past that I've worked with, and you know, being responsible for private information, and you know, those kinds of things were relevant. And having worked with elementary school kids in the past as well, and I think that I showed up as well as I could have. I represented myself as well as I could have. But yeah, I mean, I'm nervous about everything right now because of the last few years. I wanted to do my job, um, but I was having meltdowns all the time and running out of sick leave and running out of vacation leave and going into leave without pay. And I wasn't like in trouble, but it wasn't good, and it was inconvenient because they had to find a sub for me a lot. And um, anyway, it worked itself out, but I was at my wit's end because I didn't know what to do. You know, you have to earn a living, um, and I couldn't think of a way to do that that would be, you know, within my energy preferences, not overstimulating. And so, of course, I'm worried that this health assistant job could be overstimulating. But I'm also a little optimistic because, yes, there will be hard times, of course, but um, unlike my most previous job where I'm with the students all day, going here and there through the community and attending to all of their needs and being around all of their um, stimming and all that behavioral stuff all day. That is different from having a room that people come to, and when you're not with those people, I imagine I would have other tasks that I would be doing on my own, which is a great way for me to recover my energy. So I am optimistic, I'm hopeful, I'm excited. It's important to me. It's, I want to stay in the school district. It would be great. So I didn't want to cancel that, and my body forced the issue. My mind is a people pleaser and wanted to do all the things. And I say that because, my partner was really excited about this volunteership, and rightly so. But I think she was more excited than I was. And she even joked that, like, maybe she should sign up for it. But yeah, I like the idea of working with animals, which is kind of, that's what she said the reason for her recommendation was. But I'm just hesitating to put myself outside into the community, into the outside space for more than I need to or want to. Yeah, because my meltdown was really bad. I mentioned how I don't like how I keep injuring myself and damaging things, and that's what happened. I this morning, it's hard to even remember what exactly the trigger was, except for that I remember telling my girlfriend that I couldn't ground myself. I felt unsafe, and I just felt unsafe, and I was trying to self-soothe and trying to rationalize it, trying to let it go or accept, and my body was staying consistently at a very high state of fear, and yeah, it was exhausting. And eventually I just I lashed out at the um, footstool, the step ladder that was next to me, which fortunately is made out of plastic, but it's like a Lego that I don't know how to put back together. I totally broke it into 3 pieces and dented my wall, and I bruised my hand and scratched my feet, and I scared my cat. I sort of like busted my landlord's gonna have to come fix the window again because it like came off the track because I opened it so abruptly in my frustration to let my cat out, because he was meowing at me in that moment that I was overloaded. And you need to open it with 2 hands, but I just like quickly like did that, and it came off its track, and so I broke all this stuff, and I hurt myself again. I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. I have to accept meltdowns are a part of autism, and I have to try to stay safe and reduce the stressor when it happens, and go somewhere quiet or whatever. But yeah, it's just really disappointing for me because since I was a kid, before I had any idea what autism was, I was having meltdowns and throwing my toys at the wall and like damaging the wall. Like, I'd made so many holes in the walls, and I was very ashamed of myself every time. Like, you can't do this again. No, why? You gotta stop. And it's just a matter of the tension that built up in me because life was stressing me out. I mean, I had PTSD from being abused by my adoptive matriarchal figure. And, I'm also, I don't know, like, I'm an Aries, and I had all these, like, desires and preferences, and nothing ever seemed to work out the way I wanted it to as a kid, and I was always frustrated about that, and I wanted certain kinds of attention that I didn't really seem to receive or achieve. And I mostly made a fool of myself and hurt people and burned bridges. And it was just a shit show. And I was always stressed out, and so, sometimes I would have meltdowns, and never really stopped. As I got older, I would usually like scream into a pillow or something, but occasionally I would end up, throwing my phone at the floor, and it would bounce up and dent the wall and stuff like that. It's just, and every time I just felt like I was broken, and I felt like I was doing something bad. So it really sucks. I mean, I also used to slap myself in the face a lot, which did happen yesterday now that I think about it. It's just a thing that happens when you're autistic sometimes and you're overstimulated. But I'm it's hard for me to listen to my body because I have expectations of myself that I guess are high, but also in my opinion they're just like basic and standard. But my partner did also point out to me again that I keep trying to be too easygoing and accommodating and telling people that I can do things when I really can't. And I told the landlord that he could come over anytime, when actually I had a phone interview, and Kayla, knowing me, was like, you should wait till tomorrow. He said you can come tomorrow, so you should just wait. She's right, but I don't want to seem difficult. I want people to like me. When I was 16 or so, my therapist at that time told me, because I had this extreme concern whether people liked me or not. It was a joke, but he said, so here's what you do for that issue. You take a clipboard with you to school in the morning and stand by the front entrance, and as everybody walks in, ask them, do you like me? Do you like me? I was 16, so that was over half my life ago. And I'm basically just as concerned about it as ever. So I'm trying to undo that by listening to my very loud body signals. I've always been extremely emotional, but I've usually tried to push it down and make it appropriate, or try to express myself and then make it weird. I usually just keep it to myself and seem grumpy and distant. But the alternative is to express myself, which can get messy. It can be hard to say things that are not what people want to hear or expect. But also, the good people in your life should want you to be authentic so that you can authentically enjoy your life. So I got really into astrology when I was about 19 or 20 or 21. Somewhere towards the end of college, I decided to look deeper into it, and I found something called The Secret Language of Birthdays. You might have heard of it. There's a book form, which actually I have a weird story about that I'll get to later, but when I looked deeper into it in college, it described my life in such detail and the future that I could imagine knowing myself, but was hypothetical at the time. But more has transpired such that I can confirm some of it. One part that I feel like I'm in transition, is that it said I would be, part of it described me as like kind of like an empath, where I'm not sure if it's my feelings or another person's feelings, and it's hard for me to stand up for myself, but eventually I would have to develop firmer boundaries and become tougher, and that people in my life who had been wanting to control me in certain ways would push back on that. And that was actually pretty true in my mid to late 20s. I was just trying to be myself and like optimistically thinking that people in my life like got that, but I got feedback from family and friends that well, for example, one friend told me that I take up too much space. And a family member told me that I'm kind of a black hole. I feel guilty about these things because they reflect on my behavior and my social habits, I guess, but it doesn't feel good. And I don't really associate with those people anymore, and I struggle to be myself out in public, but I do it more than I used to. My coworkers at the job that I had that got medical leave from, they were all really good people, and I was, pretty open with them about my life, and they accepted me and liked me, what I could gather. And yeah, my partner has seen me at my absolute worst. She saw me attack the step ladder and flail around and scream for like 30 seconds, and she still wants to be around, and that's not something I ever would have imagined could be possible. As a contrast to that, in my previous relationship, it's not their fault at all. Not everybody knows about autism, but I didn't know that I had it at the time, but I had a meltdown where I was like crying and pretty hysterical, and it was really bad. I mean, I don't typically drink alcohol, and also I was newly on some antidepressants that I didn't take for very long because they didn't work very well for me, but I had some alcohol with those, and maybe that's not why, but I had a really intense reaction and really freaked out and was crying and screaming a lot and got into a fight with my ex-girlfriend, and that was the end of our relationship. And her mom's comment to her from what she said was, what? But he's a man. And at the time, not knowing about autism, I disagreed with that kind of perspective anyway. But I still struggle with the shame, and I don't like when it happens, and I do feel like I should try harder and whatnot. But sometimes life just gets crazy, and I try my hardest to cope and meet what's happening, and it sometimes overstimulates me, and I sometimes have meltdowns, and so I guess I'm learning to be myself a bit more and figuring out who is cool with that and who's not. And go back to that story about that book, the book version of The Secret Language of Birthdays. I was probably 19 probably about 19. I was home from college to visit. Well, I was visiting with my friend, and that day I had this word in my head, like in my mouth. I didn't know where it came from. Capella. And we went to the bookstore, because that's kind of what my friend and I usually ended up doing, was hanging out at Borders or Barnes & Noble or whatever other bookstore there was. And I walked up to this book called The Secret Language of Birthdays, and I opened it to my birthday, April 7th, and one of the people on the list, famous people, was Francis Ford Coppola. I was like, I've had this feeling, this sound Capella stuck in my mouth. This is really weird. So I felt a little bit like some kind of spooky connection to it ever since then. I mean, I tried so hard to make my life be one thing or another in the last decade. I tried to become a therapist. I tried to be an ESL teacher. Um, I didn't try very hard, but I, you know, played a fair bit of guitar on my own. And, thought that somehow I would become famous. Um, there's no right for me to have thought that because I didn't have any special talent and only wrote like a few songs. Um, but I just wanted something like to work out, and I had these interests, psychology and music, and I kind of pushed it really hard with my ego, always doing it with an imaginary audience in mind. And in grad school, I was also very egoic, thinking that this is my hobby. This I already know all this stuff. I can just walk through this, and I'll just earn the degree. But it was harder than that, harder than I anticipated to keep myself going with the requirements. At the end of my second year, I burned out. We had transitioned to Zoom because of the pandemic, and I was not, I guess, self-starting or whatever. I was just really in a tough place in my life, and not happy, and not not really engaging with my coursework as authentically as I probably could have or should have, certainly. So it was a rough go, and I met so many free therapists because that's what I could afford, and most of the time they are just getting started in their practicum in those cases. And so sometimes you get interactions that are well intentioned but a little bit rough around the edges. I'm not saying this was that per se, but I told this guy I was trying to finish grad school and be a therapist, and I was teaching ESL, and I didn't feel like it was working out, and I can't really remember all of my gripes at that time, but what his comment was he didn't really say anything, and then he finally said, "You have very high expectations for yourself." And my egoic mind was retorting very quickly, like, why shouldn't I? Like, I can do that. Like, I'm worthy of that. Like, you're a therapist. Like, why shouldn't I? I had all these. I equated being a therapist with graduating from not like literally therapy school like grad school, but like being a client and being in therapy and needing therapy. I thought that if I went to grad school, then by the end of it, I would have conquered my demons and would figure out how to lovingly heal the world by virtue of that. And it is not quite what happened. But yeah, so I hope I get this gig, I think. I can certainly see how I might only be able to stand it for so long, but also if it's 4 days a week, maybe I could be a health room assistant from Tuesday to Friday. I hope you guys are doing well wherever you are at this point in time when you see this, and yeah, much love to you. I don't really know what else to say except for I'll see you next time. Bye.